Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of rap music. It's an incredible journey that starts with a culture of protest and ends with a rivalry that would change music forever.
So let's get right into it. A culture at war. We're talking about the 1990s, when an entire genre basically declared war on itself, pitting friend against friend and coast against coast.
And in the middle of it all were these two names. In the mid-90s, Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. weren't just musicians. They were like generals in a coastal war. You had Tupac, the voice of the West Coast, and Biggie, the undisputed king of the East. And the wildest part? They actually used to be friends. Their feud would go on to define a whole era. So the big question is, how did this even happen? How did a movement that was born from this idea of unity get so violently divided? Well, to really understand the conflict, we've got to go back, way back to the beginning. Okay, let's rewind the clock to 1970s New York City. It's really a tale of two completely different worlds existing right next to each other. On one side, you had the dazzling world of disco. Think flashy cars, expensive clothes, glittering disco balls, the whole shebang. It was the sound of pure escapism, and it was dominating the radio. But then, just a few miles away, in the ghettos of the Bronx, life was a whole other story. Marginalized African American communities were facing massive inequality, poverty, real hardship. For them, that glamorous disco world might as well have been on another planet. And it was out of that struggle that a new movement started to bubble up. You gotta understand, this wasn't just music. It was a culture of rebellion. It was a way for people to protest their situation and, create something that was entirely their own. It all really kicked off at these local block parties. You had these absolute pioneers, guys like DJ Kool Herc, who started experimenting. He took funk records and did something that was honestly revolutionary. He found the drum breaks, the best part, and just looped them, creating this raw, incredible energy that nobody had ever heard before. Now, this new culture wasn't just about the music. It was a whole ecosystem built on 4 distinct creative elements. Each one was a different way to express yourself. It all started with the DJ, right? They provided the musical foundation. Then you had the MC, the rapper, who gave the whole movement its voice. Graffiti gave it a visual identity, splashed across city walls and subway trains, while breakdancing gave it this unique athletic style. Altogether, these 4 pillars gave an identity to the voiceless. And while all 4 of those elements were absolutely crucial, it was the voice of the MC that was destined for total global domination. Rap music. The name itself tells you everything you need to know. The word rap can literally mean heavy criticism. And at its core, that's what it was, a tool for storytelling and for social commentary. The artists, the MCs, they were like poets of the street, rhyming about their lives and the world they were seeing. And then, in 1979, boom, the explosion. The Sugar Hill Gang released Rapper's Delight, and it was a massive turning point. For the first time ever, a rap track was getting played on radios all over the world, taking the sound of the Bronx to a global audience. The underground had officially surfaced. So, as rap's popularity just blew up, different regions started developing their own unique sounds. And this creative evolution, well, it pretty quickly gave birth to a fierce new rivalry. 2 dominant forces emerged. You had the East Coast, centered in New York, which was known for these really complex, intricate lyrics over gritty, often jazz-sampled beats. But then you had the West Coast, out in California, which pioneered G-Funk, a much smoother, funk-infused sound. And it's where gangster rap really took off, with themes about street life, money, and power. And this creative competition quickly turned into a high-stakes business rivalry. It was all centered around 2 powerhouse labels, Diddy's Bad Boy Records on the East Coast, home to Biggie, and Suge Knight's Death Row Records on the West Coast, which would eventually sign Tupac. It was no longer just about who had the best rhymes. And things just spiraled out of control, fast. In November '94, Tupac gets shot at a studio in New York, and he publicly blames Biggie's crew. Then, after he gets out of prison, he joins the rival label, Death Row, and releases Hit 'Em Up, which is still one of the most vicious diss tracks in music history. What started as words on records just tragically escalated into real-world violence. The tragic outcome just stunned the world. In September 1996, Tupac Shakur was murdered at just 25 years old. 6 months later, the Notorious B.I.G. was killed. He was only 24.
two of music's brightest, most important stars lost right at the peak of their careers.
The deaths of Tupac and Biggie really marked the end of that coastal war, but it was also the beginning of a whole new chapter for rap music. So, in the aftermath, the rivalry cooled down, but something else happened. Rap music, which was once the voice of this underground rebellion, just completely broke into the mainstream. It transformed from the sound of protest into the dominant sound of global pop culture. And that evolution sparked a debate that is still going on today. As rap became this multi-billion-dollar industry, a lot of people felt it lost its rebellious soul. But then others argue that even in its commercial form, it still gives a platform to marginalized voices and tells stories that would otherwise just go unheard. So what does rap really represent today? Has it evolved so far beyond its protest roots that it's just mainstream entertainment now? Or is that original spirit of rebellion still alive in there somewhere? That's the question this whole story leaves us with.